In the fall of 1932, flyers began appearing around Macon County, Alabama, promising, quote, colored people special treatment for, quote, bad blood, free blood tests, free treatment by county health department and government doctors. The sign said, you may feel well and still have bad blood. Come and bring all your family. Hundreds of black men, many of them poor, signed up. They were promised free meals, free physicals, and free burial insurance. What they were never told was that they would become part of the Tuskegee study of untreated syphilis in the Negro male, a secret experiment conducted by the U.S. Public Health Service to study the progression of the deadly venereal disease without treatment.
So today, America does remember the hundreds of men used in research without their knowledge and consent. We remember them and their family members, men who were poor and African American. Without resources and with few alternatives, they believed they had found hope when they were offered free medical care by the United States Public Health Service. They were betrayed.
Tuskegee wasn't the only unethical syphilis experiment. From 1946 to 1948, the United States led human experiments in Guatemala where nearly 700 men and women, prisoners, soldiers, mental health patients, were intentionally infected with syphilis. Hundreds more people were exposed to other sexually transmitted diseases as part of the study, without their knowledge or consent. In the early 80s, Bayer knowingly sold blood clotting agents infected with HIV to Asian and Latin America months after withdrawing them from Europe and the US.
Mike, welcome to the show. We appreciate you being on tonight.
Thanks for the invitation, Joe.
Okay, let's talk about the rat of the week. Why is Bayer Corporation the rat of the week?
Internal documents show that after this company positively, absolutely knew that they had a medication that was infected with the AIDS virus, they took the product off the market in the U.S. and then they dumped it in France, Europe, Asia, and Latin America. The medicine's called Factorate. It was an injection medicine that was used for hemophiliacs, mostly children. Children had been born with an incurable disease.
Hold on, Mike. So hold on. So you're telling me that Bayer knew that this drug was infected with the AIDS virus. They yanked it from the market in America, and then they dumped it in markets overseas?
They had to figure out a way, Joe, to make a profit on a product that they could not sell in America. So they made a huge profit. They dropped the product in Japan, Spain, and France. By the way, Joe, government officials in France that allowed that to happen actually had to go to prison for it. In America, not one corporate executive for this company has been indicted or even criminally investigated by our Justice Department.
Why not? What, you're telling me that these people that dumped this AIDS-tainted blood in foreign countries, who killed children, have not been taken to task in the United States?
It's worse than that. The U.S. government allowed it to happen. The FDA allowed this to happen. And now the government is completely looking the other way. Thousands of innocent hemophiliacs have died from the AIDS virus. And not only they're dying, their family members are dying because they're becoming infected with the disease.
On November 14th, 1986, the U.S. Congress passed the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act, absolving the vaccine manufacturing companies of any legal liability if anyone is injured from their vaccines. So if you or your child should become seriously injured or even die as a result of getting a vaccine, this act of Congress made it illegal for you to sue them and hold them accountable. In October of 2010, the Supreme Court upheld this law. Justice Anton Scalia wrote, "No vaccine manufacturer shall be liable in a civil action for damages arising from a vaccine-related injury or death associated with the administration of a vaccine after October 1st, 1988. If the injury or death resulted from side effects that were unavoidable, even though the vaccine was properly prepared and was accompanied by proper directions and warnings." In May of 2010, the Rockefeller Foundation published a document titled Scenarios for the Future of Technology and International Development. The document lays out different sets of scenario planning, describing it as, quote, a process of creating narratives about the future based on factors likely to affect a particular set of challenges and opportunities. The first scenario lined out in this document is called lockstep. Merriam-Webster defines lockstep as a standard or method of procedure that is mindlessly adhered to or that minimalizes individuality. In lockstep, in perfect or rigid, often mindless conformity or unison. Lockstep goes on to describe a future pandemic, originating from wild geese, infecting nearly 20% of the global population, with a deadly effect on economies as well. It goes on to say, quote, even locally, normally bustling shops and office buildings sat empty for months, devoid of both employees and customers. Their solution to this future pandemic, in a nutshell, is a world of tighter top-down government control and more authoritarian leadership. On October 18, 2019, the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security, the World Economic Forum, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation hosted Event 201, a 3.5-hour pandemic tabletop exercise that simulated a series of dramatic, scenario-based discussions confronting dilemmas associated with a response to a hypothetical pandemic. Event 201 simulates an outbreak of a novel zoonotic coronavirus transmitted from bats, then to pigs, then to people. It eventually becomes, quote, effectively transmissible from person to person, leading to a, you guessed it, severe pandemic.
On behalf of our center and our partners, the World Economic Forum and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to our audience here in New York, as well as our larger virtual audience participating online today. The Event 201 scenario is fictional. Today's scenario is going to simulate meetings of a multi-stakeholder group called the Pandemic Emergency Board.
We're at the start of what's looking like it will be a severe pandemic. And there are problems emerging that can only be solved by global business and governments working together.
There's been some conspiracy theories that are around about the potential that pharmaceutical companies or the UN have released this for their own benefit.
And maybe this is a time for us to showcase some cases where we are able to bring forward some bad actors and leave it before the courts to decide whether they have actually spread some fake news.
A new coronavirus. Infected people got a respiratory illness with symptoms ranging from mild flu-like signs to severe pneumonia.
In related news, a significant demand for personal protective equipment like N95 masks and gloves are on the rise. Patients are overwhelming healthcare facilities. People are avoiding public spaces out of fear of infection and in compliance with public health recommendations. Our U.S. affiliate has just released polling results on public expectations for a vaccine, and 65% of those polled are eager to take the vaccine, even if it's experimental.
I am not optimistic about having the vaccine in time to be relevant during this pandemic.
With enough money and political will, anything is possible.
Penalties have been put in place for spreading harmful falsehoods, including arrests.
If the solution means controlling and reducing access to information, I think it's the right choice.
What exactly are the risks and benefits of staying home from work? Absolutely, we need to save lives, but we literally cannot afford a heavy-handed response that suffocates our economy.
The world saw large-scale protests and in some places riots. This led to violent crackdowns in some countries and even martial law. The public lost trust in their respective administration. Economists say the economic turmoil caused by such a pandemic will last for years. The societal impacts, the loss of faith in government, the distrust of news, and the breakdown of social cohesion could last even longer. We have to ask, did this need to be so bad?
This when we first were studying Event 201, but this is what they played on the big screen at Event 201 on October 18th, 2019, just 6 weeks before the Wuhan you-know-what came out. before the planned organized partial shutdown of the U.S. economy was hatched in public. But watch what they played here. How would you know that they were going to shut down, that social media was going to start shutting down and censoring quote-unquote disinformation? Watch this. It's like they wrote the script for everything.
Today about the CAPS pandemic. Twitter and Facebook are reporting they've identified...
By the way, yesterday was the first official anniversary of Event 201, where they planned the world's demise.
And deleted a disturbing number of accounts dedicated to spreading disinformation about the outbreak. For more on this, we go to our correspondent, Catalina Parks.
Chen, these accounts were created by several state-sponsored groups.
Try to get out of your mind that this is horrible script reading and horrible acting, and try to just focus on what they're saying.
Groups intending to sow political discord. And some individuals are seemingly seeking to gain financial advantages. Care workers and minority populations has been increasing. A recent riot highlights the real danger in these posts. Countries are reacting in different ways as to how best to manage the overwhelming amounts of dis and misinformation circulating over the internet. In some cases, limited internet shutdowns are being implemented to quell panic.
Thank you, Catalina. For more on
is that a prophecy of things to come? Limited shutdowns of the internet? Really?
this, we are joined by experts on crisis communications and social media, Kevin McAleese and Sarah Lee.
To me, it is clear countries need to make strong efforts to manage both mis- and disinformation. We know social media companies are working around the clock to combat these disinformation campaigns.
Remember, truth is treason in the empire of lies, and truth is the new hate speech, and you can't go to war until you decimate the truth. Truth is the first casualty in any war, including the most important war of all, the war in your mind, the information war. So that's what we're seeing today. So what they're calling hate speech, what they're calling misinformation and disinformation is usually just people asking questions.
The task of identifying every bad actor is immense. And experts agree that new disinformation campaigns are being generated every day. This is a huge problem that's going to keep us from ending the pandemic and might even lead to the fall of governments, as we saw in the Arab Spring.
Yeah, we can't have that. We can't have the fall of governments, can we?
If the solution means controlling and reducing access to information, I think it's the right choice.
In February of 2020, the Center for Disease Control sent COVID tests that were tainted with the virus to nearly all of the 100 state and local public health labs. This was confirmed later by a federal investigation. Just how deadly is the virus?
Sit back and relax, because for the next minute or two, I'm going to give you the shits. I'm going to give you the single highest institutional tracking system. That's why we're looking at the world population right now. Single highest institutional tracking system concerning Cerveza-bug. That's the shits. Single highest institutional tracking system. What do I mean by that? If you take the current world population of 7.8 billion people, they say, and then you go over here. This is Worldometer. Anybody can look at this. Let me go over here, show you what this is. This comes straight from worldometer.com. And you can get this through my website. I got a lot of cool fancy tools there that are all absolutely 100% free at highimpactflix.com. But I'm going to go over here to part of Worldometer where they have a Cerveza-bug special. It's got the total cases of 24.2 million, deaths 827,008, the amount recovered. But what we're interested in is this number, a couple numbers right down. Let me get this down here. Let me get all this whittled down nice and neat for you, because we're going to look at 4 numbers down here that are very interesting that you won't hear spouted too much on MSNBC, CNN. At least they won't be highlighted. But check this out. In the United States, according to Worldometer here, and this is the shits, the single highest institutional tracking system, the USA has 331,298,704 people supposedly, with 183,184 cases. Down here, we have China with 1.4 billion people and only 4,634 cases. Okay, that's China. Only 4,634, and we in the United States have supposedly 183,184. So let's do a little bit. Let's do a little bit of single highest institutional tracking system, or SHITS math. U.S. deaths, 183,184 divided by 331.2 million people equals 0.00051% death rate. If you break that down and you turn it into a percentage, that's 50 thousandths of 1%. 50, think about it, guys. 50 thousandths of 1% death rate in the United States. That's your single highest institutional tracking system, or SHITS. I'm going to give you the SHITS. I told you I would. Let's go back down here to China. There's China. 1.4 billion people in China with 4,634 deaths. Divide 4,634 divided by 1.4 billion, and guess what do you get? You get 0.00000. That's 5 zeros, 32. 0.0000032%, or 3 millionths of 1% death rate. But it's a pandemic. Now let's go to the world, okay? So if you take the world death rate, according to Worldometers, I'm not pulling these numbers out of my ass. I am giving you the shits, but I am not pulling numbers out of my ass. Deaths, 827,008 divided by 7.8 billion people. That's 0.00097%, or 900 thousandths of a percent death rate. But we have to shut everything down. The world is 900 thousandths of a percent death rate. China is 3 millionths of a percent death rate. And the US is 50 thousandths of a percent death rate. And these are padded numbers according to Deborah Birx, and according to at least Deborah Birx and Dr. Ezike from Illinois.
How are COVID deaths counted?
Of the definition of people dying of COVID. So the case definition is very simplistic. It means at the time of death, it was a COVID positive diagnosis. So that means that if you were in hospice and had already been given, a few weeks to live, and then you also were found to have COVID, that would be counted as a COVID death. It means that if even if you died of a clear alternate cause, but you had COVID at the same time, it's still listed as a COVID death. So everyone who's listed as a COVID death doesn't mean that that was the cause of the death, but they had COVID at the time of death. I hope that's helpful.
As your trusted health authority, I'll share with you why you should be more scared than ever before. But first, there's been a new twist in the COVID crisis. We just published research on the CDC website that shows only 6% of COVID deaths that we've been reporting to you were caused by COVID alone. 94% of COVID deaths had an average of 2.6 comorbidities. That means of the 161,392 COVID deaths that we've been shoving in your face, only 9,210 were legitimate COVID deaths. So does that mean we've been deceiving you and inflating the COVID death count by 152,182 deaths? Absolutely not, because we genuinely don't believe in math. And does this new information that proves that COVID is far less deadly than we've been trying to get you to believe mean you shouldn't live with intense fear anymore? Absolutely not. As your trusted health authorities, we consider our original estimates of over 2 million COVID deaths in the US to be a far more accurate number than the 9,200 deaths that have actually happened. And of the 9,210 deaths, 90% of them were in people of advanced age, which means young people are at extreme risk because you never know when your age is going to advance by multiple decades all at once. People finding this published information and spreading it around on social media wasn't part of our pandemic because it puts people at risk of not being scared to death of this statistically not very deadly disease. Luckily, we started running smear campaigns on the sources that are highlighting this dangerous fake news that's based on facts. Look for terms like conspiracy theories and fringe theories that we use to make these news statistics irrelevant. And we're also having it censored on social media already for everyone's protection. And to help you further forget this new relevant information, we've also buried it on the CDC website. Good luck finding it. Only 6% of reported COVID deaths actually died from COVID? Now's a great time to discount people that speak of this new information with a well thought out, emotionally charged comment rebutting something they didn't say. Like, oh, so you're saying you don't even care about the people that did die of COVID? You're glad they're dead, you just want sick people to die? Well, because they said nothing to indicate that. Your emotionally fueled abstract assumption is obviously a more accurate expression of what they meant than what they expressed. Now, we plead with you not to use this new information as a rational basis to rethink the level of fear that you're living under, because rethinking your thinking could cause you to change your mind. And changing your mind is uncomfortable and a potential cause of COVID, because our science fiction is yet to prove otherwise. And new information is the new outdated information, so you'll want to stay with the times. So why should you be more scared than ever before? Because statistically speaking, your chances of not dying from COVID are 99.96%. And that means if you're in the 0.04% that does die from COVID, you have a 100% chance of dying. Take a look at the numbers. And luckily that means we're still justified in trying to ruin your lives to save your lives. In an effort to do so, please pay close attention to the COVID death count that will continue to run across your screen for you. Look, here it is! And so you can stay under your warm, wet blanket of fear, we'll neglect to adjust the death count for accuracy with respect to this new information. And we'll also continue to take away your rights for your protection. And just like how a woman abused by her husband might say, "He only hits me because he loves me," you can repeat, "They're only taking away my rights to protect me." And you'll continue to surrender your rights because you're scared. Now that we've confused any clarity you might have been feeling on the new COVID death count information, you can go back to sleep. Please stay tuned for more updates on what you should be thinking and feeling.